is in the House to deliver a statement on the success of the Eurobond, the depreciation of the cedi, and Ghana's exit from the IMF. The Ghana cedi has performed poorly this year against its major counterpart, especially the US dollar. Businesses, especially importers, raised alarm when the cedi's exchange rate to the dollar inched closer to the 6 cedi mark. Others, borrowing from a phrase popularized by the Vice President whilst in opposition, blamed it on weak economic fundamentals. The Finance Minister, however, disagrees. He said people talking down the cedi is largely to blame for its recent fall in value.
It's clear from the data that the appreciation of the cedi was not due to weak economic fundamentals, but rather a combination of structural rigidities and the apparent speculative behavior of portfolio investors and market participants. It is also noteworthy that while this is a challenge, the cedi has, however, performed better over the last 2 years than when compared specifically to 2012 to 2016.
He says a committee will be established soon to look into the depreciation.
The President has directed that I investigate the structural causes for the depreciation of the cedi and to propose measures to address the situation. The Governor and I will put a bipartisan committee together to proceed immediately.
The Finance Minister, citing some macroeconomic indicators, said the economy has been put on a good footing.
Our recent success in the Eurobond market demonstrates the clear confidence that the international community has in the work that we have done. It is hard work, and we know that this confidence resonates with our vision of a Ghana beyond aid.
But the minority won't have any of that. Members of the Finance Committee, Fifi Kwete and Isaac Adongo, are challenging the claim.
If you got 15.4, which is coming down a mess, what about 18% going up to 21%? Then we mess. What shall we call it? Super mess. Left by your government. So please, don't come misleading us. Let the truth be told. But that is not all. The cedi depreciation. Where did it end at the end of 2008? It ended at 20.2. And did not stop there. As a result of the massive, the crisis that you left behind, the first 5 months of 2009 saw depreciation going up by an additional 18% before the NDC government brought it down. So the fact that there is an exit out of IMF doesn't mean that we are out of the way, because your history shows that you have gone out of IMF before, but the mess you left in 2 short years after that completion was absolutely terrible. The most abysmal economic performance in our history.
Our total revenue, including grants, what we went and begged foreigners to give us, was only 47 billion. Mr. Speaker, 5 billion of our wage bill, 5 billion of our interest cost put together was financed through borrowing, Mr. Speaker. We borrowed to pay wages and salaries. We borrowed to pay interest costs by 5 billion Ghana cedis. And Mr. Speaker, you are celebrating this. Mr. Speaker, what is worrying? Mr. Speaker, what is worrying is the fact that goods and services, there's nothing now left to pay for goods and services, and we go to borrow to pay for goods and services.
Right, but what does the Finance Minister mean by a bipartisan committee to investigate the free fall of the cedi? Let's listen to the Finance Minister, Ofori-Atta, as he explained it.
As I indicated during the 2019 budget statement, we recognize that while current resources are insufficient to meet every need and every demand of every Ghanaian, there are no limitations on our collective potential. So, Mr. Speaker, we have been creative in our efforts to take Ghana beyond aid through social partnerships and harnessing our entrepreneurial spirit as a country to build infrastructure, develop industry, and support agriculture. Mr. Speaker,
the depreciation of the cedi, Bloomberg still reports that as at the end of February, the cedi was the weakest currency in the globe, weakest performing currency in sub-Saharan Africa. What we need to appreciate is that the cedi as of today is reported by Bloomberg to be 5.45 against $1. That means that commitment on interest payment will naturally go up. So if government estimated 16 billion as interest payment is likely to become 17 or 18 billion. How is government going to raise the additional 1 billion in order to be able to offset that, particularly when their budget target and budget numbers for the budget was 4.8 cedis to $1 US. Therefore, to describe the appreciation as impressive is neither here nor there. We will be happy to nominate the Honorable Akufo-Addo and Honorable Adongo to serve on it. Thank you.
Is it necessary? Don't we know what the problem is already?
Depreciation of the cedi, I've said it on the floor repeatedly, not until you expand your export base and increase your exports, you will not get it right. I'm afraid that dollar to cedi may get to 6 cedis before the end of the year, as has been predicted by Bloomberg, and that can be worrying for our country.
That's why he says you are talking down the cedi, leading to the problem. Yeah, he said it. He made the point. He said, you've done it rightly again. You say you hit 6 cedi. This is why the cedi is
struggling. He should go and ask Banwea whether he was talking down the cedi.
All right, joining me is Elijah Otu-Esi, and he's a chartered financial economist, and we're going to understand whether this is the way to go. I mean, investigating the free fall of the cedi, how is that going to help at all? And thank you very much for joining us. Now, before we actually get on with it, I'd want to understand what is going on, because we hear Bloomberg, we hear the minority quoting Bloomberg saying that the currency against the dollar is at 5.5 thereabout, and then you also look at some online platforms and it appears that we're having different figures. Do you have any idea why the inconsistency? Because we're looking at xc.com, for instance, and xc.com is quoting 5.14, and then if you go to Bloomberg says 5.52, and then if you go to Bing, and then the Bing is saying 5.15. So what is the official rate on the market?
The official rate, I think that I would say let's focus on what the Bank of Ghana is giving us, which is 5.14.
5.14?
Yes.
All right. Now, this bipartisan committee that the finance minister is talking about, is that the way to go? Investigating, is it that we don't know what is causing the depreciation of the cedi?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Yeah, I think that this committee is very, very, very important, because to understand what the government is doing, I would say let's not downplay government intelligence with this movement that government is doing. To understand the movement of exchange rates, market is basically driven by people's emotions, sentiments. Now, when the big guys of every economy, that's the money makers, the money movers, when they sit down, they know whatever government is doing. So at every point in time, every government need to instill confidence in the big guys, the movers of the economy, I mean. So I think that essentially what government is doing by setting up this committee is to instill confidence in investors, in those who have the resources, so they can support government to in his objective of stabilizing the economy. So let's not downplay the intelligence of government. How does
this bipartisan, do you understand what they mean by bipartisan committee actually? Because we're trying to understand, is it going to comprise of people who are in parliament, or who are going to be the members of this committee? Do you understand that?
Well, essentially, as I was saying again, the market is driven by human beings. So whatever government is doing, these big guys are looking at government.
All right.
I cannot say what will happen as to the outcome of the exchange rate by this committee being set up. But whatever would happen at the end of the day should instill confidence in the market movers.
All right. Let's hold on a bit. I want us to listen to the finance minister explaining what he actually meant by the bipartisan committee.
What we have done at the end of last year, we passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which in a sense sort of constrained the budget deficit to 5%, and also to ensure a positive primary balance. And then there will be a censure on the Minister of Finance in the event of a breach. And I think that's as far as any sort of law has gone in our history. Then secondly, we also set up the Financial Stability Advisory Council and then the Fiscal Council, which is headed by Dr. Akwa, former governor. The expectation of all of this is to ensure that we are consistently on top of the macroeconomics of the country and making sure that we work within the budget that Parliament would have approved. So those are important. In addition to that, we set up the Economic Planning and Coordinating Council, and that will be chaired by the governor and myself, so that we don't have any slippages, in the macro and fiscal policies. So we feel really good about where we are. And as you know, Article 4 also enables us to continue to engage with the IMF, and we have a resident rep here. So we are looking forward to working effectively to discipline ourselves. As you know, we are signing a social partnership agreement of labor and also employers, and that will be helpful in terms of bringing transparency to how we manage the economy.
And when someone says the biggest test will be an election year, how committed are you to sticking to these things when there's pressure from the electorate to spend?
I think the good thing about that is that we've been through an election cycle before in 2004, and as you know, the senior minister and the Akufo government were able to hold steady. And with all of that, we expect to be able to do that. I think we'll have to front load things like infrastructure, financing and support with the Sino-Hydro transaction. So we are comfortable that we would not need to do anything that would derail the economy in election time.
The committee that has been set up to look at the options to deal with the seasonal issues of cedi depreciation, one would say that what different things are they going to explore? Because some would say the laws are already there in terms of dealing with the seasonal issues.
I don't know that all of the laws are there, and that's what will help with the committee's work. But sure, you're also right, maybe enforcement is also going to be particular, and maybe we are going to look at other countries to see how to ensure that people have proper identification when they are getting foreign exchange, the role of the banks, the role of the forex bureaus, the way in which traders work, how do we facilitate traders by maybe issuing cards, etc. We think that will all lead, and even examining the type of imports that we bring into the country, and to accelerate, therefore, import substitution businesses and an export-driven culture.
What would be the modalities for setting up this committee? Especially as you said, it's going to be bipartisan in nature.
Yeah, I mean, it means that we certainly have people on both sides of the aisle, and then look at people, experts, traders, bankers, etc., miners, people who have involvement in foreign exchange, to look at comparable regimes around globally and see how best to manage it. I think we have a lot more resources, and we need to make sure that we safeguard it.
How soon are we seeing this in action?
We should be able to put a committee together within the next 10 days.
All right, so you heard the finance minister talking about the fact that they are likely to put the committee in place in the next 10 days. And he talks about, yes, bringing people from both sides of the aisle, as in NPP, I guess the majority, and the minority as well. They're talking about putting bankers and all of them together. Essentially, they're trying to come up with some consensus on what is causing the depreciation or the free fall of the cedi. But I'm thinking that we already know what is causing the depreciation of the cedi.
Yes, of course, we do know. But at the end of the day, I don't think that government does not know what is causing the free fall of the cedi. But the psychology, let's look at the psychology or intention behind that.
As in, government is seeking to send some signal out there.
Yes, send a positive signal that yes, things are bad, but I'm in charge. I'm trying to do something. So when people see that, then the sentiment tends to change, and then you have the support of the money movers of the economy. That is the signal that
the finance minister at some point also mentioned that people talking down the cedi is partly to blame for the cedi's depreciation. Is that a way to silence those who talk down the cedi?
No, I don't think so. But generally, talking down on the cedi will not help. Whether you belong to NDC or whichever party you belong to. I think that Ghana is for all of us. So whether you are an NDC or PPP, we all spend currencies, and the cedi affects every one of us. So if you are talking negatively about the country and it's pulling the cedi down further, will you continue to talk down the currency, the economy, because you are from a different party? I don't think so. All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Elijah Otu Essien is a chartered financial economist, and he was here on the show and giving us, enlightening us on this conversation about arresting the depreciation of the cedi. And that conversation is important because once the cedi depreciates, everything else in the country becomes a lot more expensive.